The expansion principle is a dimension that always existed. The fretboard, in as much as we saw, comprised the chromatic scale, which the sharps and the flats laid out the half steps, and then the whole steps, and then the octave points. When I went to the 12th dimension, which is the sphere, or the reverse of the third, in other words, 1 plus 2 equals 3, well then, if you go into the exponential factor, it becomes 12, which are the 12 tones. You find that there is another way to divide the music theory. So what I saw on the piano side of it was the ability to combine or unify both hands in a continuous system. Now, of course, if you've got 10 fingers and you're putting sharps on a keyboard, you then think of it in terms of including your thumb, and so the sharps on the keyboard go from 2 to 3 or 3 to 2, and in sequence encompasses, the entire spectrum. Therefore, on the fretboard, it would also have to be the same music theory. The difference, though, is that the way the sharps configure in the tuning of the strings play a large part in the dispersion of each symbol of the flag system. The flag system invariably configurates to the tuning, which is directly dependent upon the tuning for the system to be. Now, why? The reason in being is when you're trilling, the methodology of trilling comprises the unification of both hands by bringing larger parameters of music theory together. So inasmuch as the inception of trilling began on the fretted board in the electrical sense, the culmination of the universal aspect of trilling had to come through a system that was expanded beyond the chromatic scale in the conventional sense. The flag system in the key of E, which, as you can see, the polar flags are here, and then of course they repeat again here in sequence as they run. And then I started to go into more of an experimental phase, and after I took the 2 strings away for the Trillo, I brought it down to this, which was the configuration for the 4-string Trillo, where the polar flags still remain, and they are in configuration there, the tuning of which was DAFC. Then I decided to change things a bit, so I went over to take a look at the way things would look if I changed the configuration of the strings into something a little different, but in the tonality of it, it didn't really work out to be the way I had heard it originally to be, so I left that tuning alone. So then what I did was I went down to the key of C, which if I can get this. The key of C here was a very interesting key, and it provided me some different configuration into the way that was. But actually the guitar tuning was pretty much much more pleasurable for my ear, so I left it there. There was one other tuning that I used which I thought might be interesting, and that was the violin tuning, which that really brought about a very interesting state, which was basically D, G, C, and F. It's a little shaky here because I'm holding it up high, and as you can see it says violin up there, so that's the way the violin tuning looked. The polar positions reflect the both hands in the extrapolation of a language pattern that responds to the reflects the flag system. There's a major and there's a minor as a basis. For example, half of a part of this equation has to do with this polar position for this hand. Then here we have the meanings, which each part of the flag that's on the board has a symbol that goes down to describe how the flags appear. So when you have, let's say for example, E, this reflects the key of E, this reflects the key of F polar, the key of G polar, and so on. This formula was from E major to F sharp minor to C minor, and they were based on butterfly positions. So you can see E major then is written with the flag configuration on the lower end, and then the flag configuration on the other hand's position on the higher end. And so it continues down in this progression, and then it looks like a formula sort of like this. Here is basically a chart that shows a cyclical situation in trilling that goes from the octave point, and then I'm using that as a point of reference only because this is an orbital position or a 10th position, so I'm including that in the chromatic scale of it. And it goes around this way, and as you can see, the symbols of the flags are appearing in the pie that is being split with reference to how the keys are affected in the transposition of the flags of the expansion principle. From the nut all the way to the string chamber, there's no bridge. It's just from point A to point B. The harmonic apertures are in the configuration of the flag system of the expansion principle, and each flag gives off a harmonic tone that corresponds to the pitch of the string at that physical distance. The Trillo Ambieta has overtones unlike any other acoustical instrument, and that's because the harmonic apertures reproduce sound throughout the entire diapason of the hollowed. The strings are collecting right into the chamber, which then goes down underneath and then up through the harmonic apertures of the Trillo. This instrument is a dynamo unto itself. As you can see, the sublime shape of the instrument is extremely difficult to construct. One of the reasons the Trillo is made in a unique fashion to bend the wood in ways that the wood can, in two different directions at the same time, something that wood bending would be impossible to do in a conventional sense. The design of the entire body is made as a sleek, ergonomic functionality to performing with the instrument against the body of the virtuoso. And the scrolls, interestingly enough, are meant also for a dual purpose, which is to support a strap in the fabric sense that goes around the artist to stand up to play the instrument instead of sitting down. The instrument is extremely light and very thin, on the order of 2.0 pounds approximately. As you can see, the rear of the instrument supports a sitting position where it is inserted between the knees upon the lap of the artist. So all in all, the Trillo is an exquisite fine art masterpiece. Now, in 1969, Chet Atkins displayed that, I believe it was Orange Blossom Time on the Mike Douglas show, but that genre was not the genre, so to speak, specifically or definitively. Eddie Van Halen later displayed trilling in its infancy stages, albeit classical genre, in the rock vein. Both were examples of trilling, but both were based upon the separation of both hands that, in that brief moment of time, produced the unification of both hands. So, inasmuch as trilling was in its infancy also comprised the thoughts of another instrument that had to be made, in the electrical sense would have been inconclusive, or let's say unacceptable as far as a new form of instrument is concerned, only because the limitless potential of an electrified signal to produce a plethora of post-emulation or whatever special effects have you is not the sound of a new instrument, but the sound of a system. So the reverse of that had to become, again, a natural inherent acoustical instrument with a different tonality to provide the tones for trilling and at the same time produce the physical embodiment of an instrument that was ergonomically conducive to the methodology for that purpose.